The mixtape all this week featuring Matt Porter of Matt Porter Web Designs, our gadget guy who regularly is on the show talking about technology and the like. We spoke yesterday about cars and autonomous vehicles and changes in our attitude to technology. Matt, is every advance in technology, in your perspective, been a welcome advance? Are there routes that we've gone down that have not sat comfortably with you?
It's a very interesting question, really. I'm not sure. I think that...
Well, obviously, medical technology is always to be applauded, and, any technology, I guess, that makes our lives easier. I just don't know if it's all been in the right direction.
I think that there are great ideas which sometimes are rolled out by the wrong people.
That's a good response.
And therefore they don't necessarily understand what the implications of that technology is, or the decisions about which equipment to use may not have been made for the right reasons, rather than maybe a financial reason. So you might not be getting the best result that you could be because of the restraints of budgets and other things. So
you think of the gaming, which is massive in this country, in many countries in the world, the gaming profession, which it is, but many people are now citing that as the reason behind obesity and children not getting exercise and daylight and friendships. Would that be an example of where technology has let us down a bit?
I think so. I think one of the things that many of us would agree with, that although there all seems to be a double-edged sword to everything, and smartphone technology, mobile smart technology is an amazing invention. However, the negative sides of it are so many people becoming so antisocial through something that's meant to make you. So it's almost as if you've channeled your...
So it's bringing out something in us rather than the technology itself.
Into something... So you're sitting there with a phone stuck against your face, ignoring people whilst talking to somebody else who's 100 miles away or 1,000 miles away. And it's actually it seems to have caused people to become less social. People are less happy to pick a phone up and speak to you. They'd rather message you, or they'd rather send a text message. And I did actually watch, there was a documentary or a news piece about the traditional telephone, the fact that people aren't using plugged-in landline phones anymore. And they interviewed people, and people were saying, well, actually making phone calls makes me anxious, so I'd rather send... Now, what happened there? Where...
Well, I think it probably always has. Some people just don't like going on the telephone, do they? But so if there's... And I don't suppose there ever was a real alternative, so they had to do it.
I think that...
Now there is.
That telephones are fantastic. Voice communication is fantastic, that you don't have to have this tennis match of emails and text messages to have a conversation. You can hear somebody how they actually mean something. You don't have to look at it and try and read into what they're saying and then maybe misconstrue
How many arguments in the workplace are caused by text not conveying a smile or a bit
communication beats all.
Yeah, okay. When you see documentaries about the future and obviously sci-fi stuff, it's always a dystopian kind of future that we seem to be headed for, because we become slaves to technology. Do you think that'll ever be the case, where we become so entwined with it that actually without it we stop functioning as a species? I mean, you could argue that day has already arrived.
I was going to say, I think that
we
might have even passed that tipping point now, where we've become so reliant on this technology that we would struggle to without it.
Is that a dangerous place to be?
I think it probably... Yes, I think it is. I think that...
1 CME from the sun, all the power goes off, and we're back to the Stone Age.
Well, that's very true. And we've seen that to a smaller extent, where you have power cuts. And we had a power cut last year, and trains stopped running. Everything just stopped running.
Everything came to a standstill.
Whereas, there was a time when there were power stations running specifically to back up the electricity on the railway and the underground systems in London and things like that, purely for that reason.
For that reason, yeah.
And we had this situation where people just suddenly didn't know what to do, and the first alternative they had was to be angry and upset and stamp their feet and say, why am I late home now? This is not on.
Yeah.
Well, it's what would happen if there was an outage which wasn't quite as easily, didn't have such an easy remedy as, it's a failure in some, it was a test that went wrong and shut down. So, how would people cope without these things? I think we would struggle.
Well, I guess we are the last generation who can remember life before the internet.
Yeah.
So we could probably just about, go back to our child and think, well, when we were children, this is what we did.
Yeah.
But children now have no idea of life without the internet. And it just worries me that, I'm not suggesting for one moment that it will ever all go off, but you don't know. There could be a major, massive fault one day and all of a sudden it's off for a week, and you wonder how people are going to cope.
I always think of The Truman Show. The film The Truman Show.
That's it,
where, if anyone hasn't seen it, where it's like a giant, almost like a town-sized version of Big Brother, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's, where someone's born and grown up in a reality show and doesn't know they're in that reality show, but has a feeling they might be.
Yeah.
But the thing that always made me chuckle is at the end of that, effectively it finishes, and that's the end of the show. They switch it off, and everybody just carries on.
Just goes back to something
they
else.
They just went back to their normal lives.
What else is on the telly?
Yeah,
exactly, yeah. All right, song choice for this Wednesday, Matt. Coldplay, What If? For what reason?
This is interesting one because I used to take our children to nursery when they were younger. Yeah. And one day, I particularly like the album that this track's on, but I remember dropping them off one day and my wife taking them in, and I was standing outside the car and it was quite a sunny day and the doors were open on the car, and then this came on and it kind of echoed around the street where we were parking. Right. But it was kind of quite a nice, it was a lovely song.
Yeah.
And there's a particular verse in this song which is really thought-provoking. It's one of those songs where you could read into you could put something out of something that's happened to you in your life, and maybe draw it out of this song. I think it kind of encompasses everything. And my son, James, has a sleep disorder. Bless him. A terrible trouble getting him to sleep since he was born, and he's nearly 10.
Yeah.
We used to have sleepless nights over and over again. And if I look at my playlists on my phone, it shows which track has been played the most.
Yeah.
And we used to play music, all kinds of music, but this one
stood out. This was the one that did it.
Played 796 times or something to him. It's a great track. What If by Coldplay. It's brilliant.